Today we will look at non-Christian historians. The difficulty with these authors, which include the Romans, Tacitus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, and Lucian, and the Jewish author Josephus, is that they all wrote on Jesus after the Gospels had been written and circulating. For Josephus, who wrote in the 1st century, and whom we have already covered, someone could claim that he may have had access to oral traditions on Jesus from the Jews, but mythicists argue that if such traditions existed, Paul would definitely have had access to them as well, and Paul is right at the center of Christianity. So, this argument does not stand. So the only source all these writers could have access to for Jesus' life would be the Gospels, which mythicists claim are fictional in respect of the person of Jesus. Now, I don't think the Gospels are entirely fictional. We can get some kernel of historical material from them, but for the most part, they are not reliable. There are other public figures like Alexander the Great, whose earliest histories come much later than Jesus, and there would have been no eyewitnesses. However, the difference is that these histories were usually written, copying and building from more ancient records, from artifacts, relics, inscriptions, and even other texts that are now lost to us. Also, at every point, they situate these figures on earth as humans. The problem with the Jesus question is that the earliest records written by a leader of the religion who would have access to eyewitness testimony about Jesus, if he had lived, don't paint him as a historical figure. We cannot overestimate the magnitude of this gap in Paul's writings. Anyway, let's look at the Roman historians and what they had to say. Tacitus, writing about whom Nero put the blame for the fire of Rome, he wrote that Nero blamed a class called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name has its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurator Pontius Pilate. So, where could he have got this information from, if not from either Christians who had read any of the Gospels, or the Gospels themselves? He could not have got it from Roman records. None exist of Jesus or from oral traditions, or Paul and Josephus would have had access to the same. Tacitus came too late to be relying on eyewitness accounts at this point. We also have no evidence he got this account from anywhere else than the Gospels, which does not prove anything. Pliny the Younger. Pliny's account is even weaker than Tacitus. He simply describes the Christians, how they practice, singing hymns to Christ as if he were a god. This does not tell us anything new, and it does not tell us Christ ever lived on earth. Suetonius, who recorded the histories of Roman Caesars. He wrote, "Due to the Jews constantly making disturbances at the instigation of Christus, he expelled them from Rome." Like the above, this does not show Jesus lived on earth unless Christ was in Rome in the 2nd century, at least 70 years after the resurrection event, leading an insurrection with a number of Jews. Lucian, Roman historian. He also reported the Christians were worshipping as a god, a man who was crucified in Palestine. Again, his only source would have been the Gospels being used by Christians at the time. So, with Paul and no non-Christian historian reliably referencing Jesus, we have to ask, where did the Gospels get their material from? This is Mindless Musings. Thanks for watching.